From Boston University Center for Digital Imaging Arts, this is the post-movie podcast. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And on this episode, we're going to discuss Ridley Scott's new film, Robin Hood, starring Russell Crowe and Cate Blanchett and Max von Sydow. And Bluebeard, the new French film playing over at the Brattle that I just watched earlier today. And my, oh my, that was disturbing. We'll get to that.
Yeah, let's not start with that one. Let's start with Robin Hood.
Start with Robin Hood. I always love to talk about Ridley Scott and stuff.
Are you a fan of Robin Hood movies? It's kind of funny to think that's its own genre, but when I knew I was going to see this, I went and looked, and there are just so many Robin Hood movies and so many bad Robin Hood movies that... Are you a fan of this kind of thing?
This is probably the worst thing to say, but I was a huge fan of the Kevin Costner Robin Hood.
Really?
Thieves. I digged it. I digged Michael Kamen's score. I digged Christian Slater as Will Scarlet. Alan Rickman as the sheriff.
Kevin Costner as Robin Hood?
What was that? Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, I think, is Mary.
Yeah. But what about Kevin Costner as Robin Hood?
The thing that always sticks with me about that was when they were doing promo, interviews for the film. This was like, when did it come out? 91, I think?
I guess, yeah.
It came out in like the same month or so. It was T2, I remember. And they were talking about how Kevin Costner's bad, just horrible attempt at an English accent was actually more akin to what it was really like then. So apparently what they were saying was...
According to who? What press
a British accent that sounded more American in the Middle Ages was actually more real. That's what they were saying.
Yeah, that some press hack...
That just makes up for his wavering accent that I think at some point completely disappears.
It was the same when he was in what, 13 Days, when he had that horrible Boston accent? Man. Tried to out Kennedy the Kennedys.
I don't know where they must have picked up on some piece of information or had some historian say something like that. No,
they had some press flack say, oh my God, his accent sucks.
Yes.
Let's put out a press release and say, no, it's actually more authentic.
We need to find
an excuse.
Historian that can corroborate the
They could have called me and I would have said it for enough money. Like, oh, that sounds so authentic, Kevin. But, I didn't really like that movie when it came out. Now when I think back on it, all I remember is Kevin Costner had a big boofy hair. He kind of had that like 80s overblown.
Yeah,
they had hair dryers back in England.
Man, but when they came out with the trailer, I thought that was the coolest damn thing. That was the camera ride in the arrow shot. I had never seen anything like that before. That was cool.
Laurence Olivier's Henry V had
camera riding the arrow?
Well, it had the same kind of... Oh, you mean like following the arrow from...
The camera was the arrow.
Yeah.
Going right into the tree with I think the arrow coming up from like the bottom of the screen as it like zoomed in on the screen.
I don't know. But now, that was years ago. We've got a new Robin Hood now. And is it new and improved, do you think? Is it...
Well, it's not the...
It's not the Robin Hood you remember.
It's not that's like, Kevin Costner's was like the Raiders of the Lost Ark version of Robin Hood. It was the Hollywood blockbuster summer fun version of Robin Hood.
Right.
Which was cool.
This is not what Russell Crowe and Ridley Scott have made.
No, this is the dirty, bloody decapitation entrails version.
Where? I don't remember seeing that.
Some of those guys, on the
gutted
there.
entrails,
gutted, bloody.
I didn't.
Arrows going in one side of the neck.
Oh,
coming out the other.
That's nothing. But remember when we went to the screening, there were little kids there.
I could be getting. Oh yeah. Oh my God.
That was so weird. Here we are. We're ready.
God.
What is it? Rated R? Is it an R-rated movie?
Yeah.
And there's all these little kids, like dozens of little kids who are like running around in front of the screen and
family.
It was like a big family.
The movie starts.
Yeah, families come in.
A family strolls in, and a lady pushing her stroller.
Yeah. It said, it's a free movie. So what if the kid wakes up, screaming?
It's not even like I guess I was so like, oh man, I don't know. I was just thinking about myself. I don't want to hear a word from any kids, any baby crying during the film. That's what I was thinking about. I mean, I guess I first thought, geez, this could be traumatic for these kids. Whatever, they were like 6.
Yeah, but the real trauma will be if they make noise and you have to shut them up. See Steve come running down the aisle, shut up!
Yeah, and this baby started to make a few noises just prior to the thing. And,
well, luckily
that's one of my
the movie is cranked up to 11, so it's even though the blades of grass sound loud. But my problem was, I give Scott and Crow credit for trying to do something different. I'm not going to make any case for it being historically accurate. I don't think that historical accuracy enters into the world of Ridley Scott when he's doing the Crusades, or he's doing Robin Hood, or he's doing any of his, epics. But I like the idea that they were trying to do something different. The problem I had with it is that, A, it's way too long. It does not need to be 2.5 hours. And then it was like, they got to a point where they're like, oh my God, we've got to make this art. So the battle scenes, like the big battle scene at the end, which looks like the Normandy invasion in Saving Private Ryan with those troop carriers coming in.
Or the Normandy invasion in real life.
Oh, yeah, in real life. I wasn't thinking of real life, but, you're going to throw real life in here, fine. But I just thought they just were trying to be too arty.
I see what you're saying. The digital look of it.
You can't go for realism and then suddenly become an art film at the end. And Russell Crowe, I mean, he's kind of a one-note Robin Hood, I can see what you're saying here. He didn't seem to have a lot of depth. Yeah.
His character didn't show emotional range.
No.
He establishes himself at the beginning. He's an archer, as are the other fellows, Little John and Will Scarlet, who become a part slowly. This is a very slow formation of the Merry Men. They prove themselves
not so
at the
merry
beginning,
men.
By they're on their crusade and they're storming a castle, and it's like business.
Yeah.
They're camped outside the castle and they're just knocking on the front door, throwing everything at it, arrows, hot water, fire, all that stuff coming down. And I guess he didn't do anything to like really make himself like stand out, but I think that he just basically just gets himself into trouble.
Yeah, he's having a fight with Little John and accidentally kicks the king in the head. The king, who's like dressed as a commoner trying to walk through the men. Robin Hood's having a fight with Little John, and accidentally kicks the king in the head.
You know what, John?
And he ends up in the stockade for it.
Yeah, true. That was amusing. And I will add that this is a Ridley Scott film that has a little bit more humor than your average Ridley Scott film. I think you'd have to go back to like Thelma and Louise to get something that was,
no one but you remembers Thelma and Louise as a comedy. I swear.
There's humor in that movie. Trust me.
But no one remembers it as a comedy.
Well,
Ridley Scott's his funniest film was
his wife. The guy's
Thelma and
guy's
Louise.
husband. Susan Sarandon's husband, or something like that. All right.
God, did you
whatever?
So anyway, we that's the thing. It's such a down and dirty, gritty, realistic movie, and then that last battle scene becomes like an art house orgasm, and I just didn't buy it.
It was predictable. We knew where it was going to go. I want to say though about Russell Crowe, about Robin Hood, who is Robin of Locksley or something like that.
Robin Longstride.
Robin Longstride.
No innuendo there.
He really doesn't do anything to, set himself apart from the others, except he has this one flaw, which is taken advantage of. He tells the truth.
Yeah.
He'll tell the truth until the death. And so he tells the truth to Little John over their scuffle playing pinochle. And then the king he gets cornered into being asked whether he thought the crusade was worthwhile.
Yeah.
When in fact he didn't trust the people that were, doing this, propagating this thing. And he says, well, I don't think it was I don't think it was a great idea, of course I'm paraphrasing, to kill all those Muslims that we rounded up and slaughtered. Yeah.
Thanks for your honesty, and now you're under arrest.
Yeah, and now you're going to pay for that. So he makes plans to amscray from the Crusades, and gets lucky.
And that's only like the first,
He gets lucky.
15 minutes of the film, although it feels a lot longer. It's the setup, and then Robin goes off to...
He wasn't planning on being anything sort of Robin Hood. They just happened to luck into a mishap where the king is killed at the beginning, and his crown is being... someone has been chosen to bring his crown back to England. And that person's group has been ambushed by the French. They were basically able to ambush the ambush. So all that's left is Robin Hood and his men, and they can basically take these this armor, their clothes,
pretend they're knights,
and then pretend that they are someone respectable, and They come back to England under false circumstances and are able to sham their way up to the new king.
Right, Prince John.
Yeah, Prince John.
Is... It's funny,
Terrific
the guy...
performance by this guy.
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Well, it's terrific, but it's also... He chews the scenery. I mean, but the thing that's enjoyable about it is that he's the only... For a long time in the movie, he's the only bright spot in it. Everyone else is kind of monotone and mumbly, and then there's this guy who just, he's the outrageous king.
And Russell Crowe's just like brooding through this movie.
Yeah.
Like he's humbly moving and moving his way through the film. And then you have Prince John, who is a real character in the sense that the bad guys that we've seen in films recently.
Come on, you can think of a bad guy.
Oh my God, I'm totally blanking. But Jason Patrick, or I need friggin'.
I'm not helping you. I'm not helping you. No.
The Losers and Sam Rockwell in Iron Man 2. They're these bad guys with a sense of humor and they're animated. But Prince John here is certainly an animated fellow, but he doesn't have. Thankfully, doesn't have this goofball sense of humor. He's actually really just a first-class narcissist.
Oh yeah.
And everything is about him, and everything is about everyone's. It's about everyone's loyalty to him. So as much as he knows what's right, and as much as his advisors say you have to, give the people a certain amount of freedom, and give them choices and options, and they will serve you gladly. But he prefers to.
God made him king. They didn't make him king. God made him king. So his divine right overshadows anything the people want. Mm-hmm. But this movie also has a second bad guy, Mark Strong, who was in Sherlock Holmes.
He's like the bad guy these days.
He's the... one of the things that people should know about this movie is something that always... that my friend Regina said at this movie. She goes, there's a lot of reading in this. And it's not just that there's a prologue that sets up where you are, but the scenes change so much in this movie. It's like... And there's always a little title card of where you are. It's like, we're in this part of France, we're in this part of England, we're in this part of France, we're in this part of England. It bounces around. But Mark Strong plays Godfrey, who is a traitor. He worms his way into being Prince John's right-hand man and then sells him out to the French.
He's like a mercenary.
Yeah, but he's another guy. There isn't much range in his performance, Well, I don't think that there's really things that establish why Robin is such a good guy and why Godfrey is such a bad guy. Right.
They seem to be that way. And I think as from the audience point of view, I guess we needed a little more. Robin, in thinking about it again, I do recall that there were a couple of flashback sequences with him as a child and his father being killed. So he has this sort of righteous endeavor to, right that wrong. But
it's never really. When he agrees to bring back Robin of Locksley's sword from the ambush to his father, and there's some writing on the handle of the sword he somehow uncovers, and that's the key to unlocking his past in a series, in those flashbacks you're talking about. Again, it was like one of these details. It just kind of like rambled around. It didn't.
You know what I think it is I think that I wanted something more emotional from this film. I mean, I really wanted something to emotionally connect with. And, I'm searching and searching and searching, and it's not there.
No.
There's a heart from this movie that's kind of missing. I mean, Cate Blanchett is wonderful to watch. I think she's just a terrific screen presence and does a fine performance.
But there's no chemistry.
But between her and Russell Crowe, it's
nothing.
You don't get it.
No.
You don't believe it. You don't really feel it. And I really wanted to. I mean, it's like she respects him, but like, is there any like sexual tension or anything like that?
None.
No.
None. And she hasn't gotten laid in 10 years, as we're constantly reminded in the movie, because her husband was off on the Crusades too. So.
And he was the fellow who was bringing the crown back.
And
Prince John.
The Max von Sydow plays the father who suggests that Russell Crowe take the husband's place and pretend they're married, so she inherits the land, because women can't inherit land. Once he dies, it goes off. So there's the arrangement of convenience that we're supposed to believe has some tension, because they have some kind of almost like you're almost watching like a really badly written Tracy and Hepburn scene where he sleeps in front of the fire and she sleeps in the bed, but he peeks at her, and there's always supposed to be this tension. Nothing there.
It's not, and also I didn't see any real beauty in this film. Like, let's compare it to Gladiator.
Uh-huh.
What Gladiator has is that scene where Maximus returns home and he sees that his wife and his child have been slayed and hung, and it's horrible. It's really an affecting scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it's devastating. And the music, which was in Gladiator, just Hans Zimmer's score. I don't recall if he did the score for Robin Hood, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And then the whole latter half of Gladiator, especially with the final battle there, where Diamond Hansu is left standing, in the Colosseum. There's nothing like that in Robin Hood.
No.
Gladiator has done this film 10 times better. I hate to say it. It's just that much better. There's like this it's just a more powerful film. I mean, I think Ridley Scott tried to do the same things. I think he has, technically, all the things are kind of there.
Right,
but
right.
This film, Robin Hood, is edited too fast, like for pacing. Like these battle scenes have some really amazing visuals, but in 5 seconds you have to process this and it's gone.
Right.
The scenes of the troops approaching the castle are really cool. The scenes of the ships coming in over the waves is really cool. But it's so fast. And in Gladiator, there are a number of scenes that just aren't. The camera stays there and moves around the character, and you really have a chance to like soak all this in.
Right.
And also, I would add that there's nothing in Robin Hood that compares to Joaquin Phoenix's bad guy for sheer malevolence and danger. You don't feel afraid in the presence of Prince John.
No, and
he's just like a jackass.
And there's no Sheriff of Nottingham to speak of in this movie, who's the classic bad guy.
Oh, for real, yeah.
There's it's this
one of his guys, which is like a tax collector fellow, but
right, and he's played by I'm going to find his name here. Who? Sucker Punch?
Okay.
Danny? No, wait. Oh, Matthew McFadden, wasn't he in Pride and Prejudice? Wasn't he in the Darcy and Keira Knightley's Pride and Prejudice?
I don't recall.
I think so. But anyway, he's this respected British actor, and he's only in about. I mean, the Sheriff of Nottingham's a big part of the legend, and they really downsize it to be, a couple of scenes where he's like threatening to take Marianne's land, and.
But Ridley would disagree with you on that, I'm sure.
Get him on the phone. Call him.
He's going to go with the, I've studied this, I've done this.
Well,
you know.
That's fine. That's fine.
Before?
Huh?
Did you have a chance to ever talk to Junket?
I don't remember it being very pleasant.
Matchstick Men. You did?
No, I did American Gangster. Did he do American Gangster?
For Matchstick Men. I just thought it was, terrific. And he talked about his interest in, doing more of these medieval type films. And since then, he's done
Crusades,
Kingdom of Heaven, and
Kingdom of Heaven was a Crusade movie.
So which you were saying? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Did he do the? Who did American Gangster? Was that?
That's.
Yeah, I interviewed him for that, and he was totally unpleasant to talk with.
Really?
Yeah, but at the same time, I've had a chance to interview Russell Crowe twice, and you always hear these stories about what a jerk he is, and he was a delightful interview both times.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he do roundtables for?
No, he did a press conference for Master and Commander.
Right.
And then he did a press conference alongside Denzel Washington for American Gangster.
Master and Commander, I do remember the junket part for that. That was where, the film websites were starting to come into their own as being, getting invites to these things.
Uh-huh.
And I think that obviously the type of coverage that many of the film websites, who I will not name, were doing weren't up to snuff, weren't as professional as they should be. And Russell Crowe called them out on it. He says, I don't want to be put in that kind of an unprofessional situation, with just looking like a boob. I want to,
He's serious about it.
Yeah, he's very serious about what he's getting himself into. So he has his manager, publicist, pick the interviews that he's going to do, and they basically said none of the internet press was invited to do Master and Commander.
And it's funny too, because you talk about professionalism. I remember the first question asked at the press conference was from Stephen Schaefer, the Herald, and he asked him how it felt to be a father, because he just become a father. And Russell Crowe said, "Really? You want to start with that?" And Schaefer was like, "No." He goes, "No, let's talk about the movie." And then he went on for 45 minutes talking about the movie, which I thought was great. I mean, who cares? What does it feel like to be a father? This isn't People magazine.
Some publications, that's their objective.
You
sit next to the people from People magazine, they're going to ask about, they're going to ask Tom Cruise about his wedding plans or something.
Right.
From where we're coming from, we want to find out about the making of the movie.
Right.
We want to find out about, what it took them to, get this on the screen.
How did it feel to wear tights? Who cares? Who cares?
Man.
Steve, by the way, Steve, you shared a story the other day that I'd love you to pass on to readers about what it feels like to wear tights.
Well, I was so into Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. At the time, I was living in North Carolina. I was working at Kuroko Studios. And I had just finished working on, Billy Bathgate movie. And so we were all going to get together and go see Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And our SCA group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, is a group where you pretend that you're in the Middle Ages. But basically I was doing it because there was fighting. You could put on armor and beat the crap out of somebody else. You just have to make your armor and make your sword, and they're basically like these large foam boppers, and you bop the hell out of people.
And was your armor like cardboard, or what was your armor? Like tied a flexible flyer to his chest.
Various, it's for real. It's fabricated by some of the other guys in the SCA, but
okay. But anyway,
it's like wearing hockey gear.
Don't get distracted. I want people to know the story.
But the point is that I told you that yes, we did and I did show up to the theater in a Robin Hood costume.
Repeat that for the listeners.
We showed up in our medieval garb.
So, and were
just
you...
twice? No, once.
Twice?
But it was fun, man.
Okay, all right. Are there any photos of this?
20 years ago.
Can you post photos online? Do you have images of this?
The level of my dedication to film extended to showing up in costume.
And do you still have the costume?
No.
You sure? You're thinking about it.
I'm sure. I think it was a potato sack, something like that. You know, you can be a poor person, you can be a knight, you can be a noble. You know, it depends on what kind of effort you want to put into your costume.
It's true. I remember I went to a screening of Sing Along with the Sound of Music at the Coolidge.
That was a few years back, yeah.
And there were people actually dressed as brown paper packages tied up with string. I left at intermission. They were driving me crazy.
Really?
Oh, God, they would drive me crazy.
Wow.
Is there really much more to say about Robin Hood, though?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm just, other than I'm kind of disappointed in Ridley Scott. And
I think action...
I think he... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think action movie fans, after getting the adrenaline rush of Iron Man 2, this is a much more sedate, slowly paced adventure movie. It's more like,
Sedate and slowly paced? Robin Hood?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to make the case to the opposite.
That
it was too quickly edited compared to Ridley Scott's older films.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, even though the editing might be quick. The pacing of the story itself is kind of slow.
Well, you did say before the movie started that it's going to be a quick 2 hours, and I don't think it really lagged. I wasn't bored.
2.5.
2.5, yeah.
Yeah.
I
it wasn't quick 2 hours.
It
It was that last half hour that killed me.
But I kept thinking this, and that is one of the interviews I did with Ridley Scott was in Toronto for, remember Alien?
The re-release?
Right. Well, he did that thing at the theater. They had
the intro?
Yeah, the intro. So he did like the Q&A, and then he spoke with people outside the theater.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that he said was that he learned from Alien was, and why he did the re-edit, was he just felt it was too slow. And as he's gone back to look at his older films, he's realized that he's needed to clip off a couple seconds here and there. So you don't see new stuff.
Yeah.
You just see other scenes arriving more quickly, like it's a tighter film. So the re-edit of Alien is actually 1.5 minutes or something shorter than the original film, because he's just gone through it and trimmed it down.
Did it make that big a difference? Did you?
And I felt like that's what he's done with Robin Hood here, wanting to see more of certain things and then cutting away so quickly. I thought, like, this is like the Paul Greengrass school of editing. You have
without
to
the shaky cameras
from 3 fucking different angles at 5 seconds apiece, and it all has to come together in your head.
It's Paul Greengrass on a big budget.
In a way, but it just seems a little indulgent. Like you really didn't have to do that. Like,
there's a lot of overindulgence.
The other thing is that when you have so many special effects on screen at the same time, the theory is that if you have an effect on screen, after 8 seconds, your mind's going to realize it's fake. You discern the kinks in the armor on screen. You can tell. So I think a part of the fast editing comes from the fact that when you have these different effect shots, you don't want to put it out there for more than 8 seconds, so you cut it out. You cut early. So in a way, could he be hiding the quality of the effect? Which I thought the effects were amazing, but it just goes by so fast.
Who made up this 8-second rule? Is this you?
I had done an interview with Dennis Muren for War of the Worlds, and did a one-on-one at the Essex House, and I thought it was a terrific interview, and we were talking about how one perceives or comes up with and perceives a really good special effect. How does the audience accept it? So Muren said that they actually meditate over these things. They look, when you see something on screen, like in War of the Worlds or any of these big budget movies, these shots have been viewed so many times by the people that make them that it's just like ingrained in their brain, and they just like have it's become a part of their being. And so part of what Muren was saying was that at ILM they study how the mind works, or the artists and the digital effects people. They want to know how the human mind perceives these things. And so, as I recall, they had determined that after 8 seconds, the audience starts to realize that an effect is fake. So when you go back and look at some of the scenes in Indiana Jones, they're kept on scene on the screen for 8 seconds or less. Like when Mirren's getting on the plane, like when the plane is arriving, sitting at the harbor and stuff like those matte shots, particularly the matte shots. Mm-hmm. People are just wired to find something wrong with something. And
interesting.
So they try to cover themselves with that.
I don't think that's the case with this stuff.
I took a while to explain that. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
They may. I just thought that they're editing so quickly. What are they hiding the quality of the facts? I thought it was so cool, but I've already said that, so let's move on.
All right. So that's it on Robin Hood. Would you recommend seeing it?
Yes, I would, because I do think
matinee?
this film is going to please a lot of people. I think as far as a period film, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Really love
Russell Crowe fans are going to like it.
Yeah.
The ladies loved it. The ladies who were there that night around us seemed to love it. It
has a good sense of humor. His merry men.
Very.
It's just sort of like so.
Yeah.
It's a filmic experience. It's really great to see in the theater, and I would pay $10 to see it. But it's not Gladiator. It's not. It's not going to have this resonance that like.
Yeah, I wouldn't see it a second time.
It doesn't seem to have this importance.
No.
It's kind of like a one-off.
It doesn't have the arty importance of like the classic piece of film that you have to see because it's important or so well done. But it's also not a popcorn movie where you can just get it. It's not a thrill ride either. It's kind of like it's that weird. It falls in between the two while trying to be both, and it just doesn't work.
That's a good point because it's like big budget Ridley Scott, and then art house Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Because there are a number he loves. If you recall from like Blade Runner and Legend, and Alien, he loves those really extreme close-ups, and he does that here. He gets there's a couple of really cool scenes where he gets in really close on the arrows as they're firing them. And in a couple of scenes, he also puts his camera in really close and in slow motion on a couple of people.
He's an artist.
He likes those art house close-ups, and he cuts people's heads off in 2 shots, which I don't get sometimes. Like he likes to.
Sure, that wasn't just bad screening at the.
I notice it. Some people find it problematic.
I don't notice it at all.
But
Anyway, I think it's because it falls in between being a summer popcorn movie and a piece of art that it never, because it isn't either one, it ends up being some kind of weird hybrid that I like seeing, but I would never go back.
Well, it seemed like, because it's a Ridley Scott film, you see the horses in slow motion. Oh, yeah, that's like Legend, You see the ships landing and the guys coming on shore.
That's like Thelma and Louise.
1492, Conquest of Paradise.
He did that too?
Yeah.
Oh my God. His track record isn't that impressive. Legend was pretty bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider it as worse.
Conquest of
I would say
Paradise is pretty bad.
Possibly, probably. I love Legend. So, for its faults, for its annoyances, with particularly with these overabundance of close-up shots. But
I don't remember that shit.
I love that movie. Black Rain, a very underrated film.
Michael Douglas, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that one. I like Black Rain.
Just an exceptionally good-looking movie.
I didn't like Matchstick Men. I thought that was annoying.
I digged it.
I've seen 30 or 40 different versions of Blade Runner because he keeps tinkering with that fucker. And, he can't get it right for some reason.
There's one I have not seen.
What was his first movie? Kingdom of Heaven is.
Well, I think it's
awful.
his first studio film.
Bicycles, 1965.
I thought it was The Duelist, but maybe that was his first Hollywood film.
Maybe Duelist is much later. That's 77.
I didn't see Duelist. He's not someone I pick of. He's not a director I think of. Oh, I got to see it because it's a Ridley Scott film.
I would.
I don't think that about. Is Tony Scott his brother?
Yes.
He makes awful movies. What? I'm making it clear to people. Oh wait! Now I just feel like.
Don't you know the Ridley Scott brand now?
Scot-free. And now his daughter made that crappy movie at the film festival.
Oh, I didn't think it was crappy.
We'll save that for a different. Yeah. Anyway, let's kill this.
He likes mosaic animation. I will say that because the end credits for Robin Hood I thought were kind of. I couldn't decide if it was cheesy or neat.
I think it looked like they had. It looked like they had. You know, oh, look, we've got $200,000 left in the budget. Let's do some splashy animation at the end.
You know what they do? This happens so often in movies. Is that when the movie ends, they go into their credit animation sequence. Uh-huh. So this is like performance credits for all the main guys. They get to have their names involved in the animation that's going on the screen. And then when you get to the working Joes, black screen.
Oh yeah. That's the way it should be.
Everybody else gets, above the line gets the performance credit. That's below the line.
It happens in every movie except for when the Farrelly brothers do something. Then everyone gets their 2-second shot at the end. You know, all their credits usually have like pictures of everyone from the gaffers to the top line stars. But anyway, we're rambling. Let's stop with Robin Hood. Let's just stop.
From Robin Hood. Man, I wanted to get into Brian Helgeland and his splotchy track record.
I don't want to.
Films from the great to the bad.
He doesn't deserve the time. He doesn't.
All right. Well, he will come up again at some point. I mean, this is the guy who wrote Cirque du Freak, and
which was awesome.
You know, and L.A. Confidential, and then a Knight's Tale. The guy who wrote A Knight's Tale writes Robin Hood.
Yeah.
And Knight's Tale. Let's
see. I asked you to stop. Well, we won't take long if there's time left because we're going to go through Bluebeard pretty fast.
Oh man. So Bluebeard opens. We're recording on Thursday.
Opens Friday at the Brattle.
At the Brattle.
On the 14th and plays through the 19th or 20th.
You know, the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, why did they choose this? It's so depressing.
Well, but
it's so depressing.
All right, it's depressing, but is it a bad movie? It's not a children's film. No, it's an R-rated French movie. Kids shouldn't see this. But is it a bad?
Watching the screener, I don't recall that.
You said it was depressing, but does that make it a bad film? Was it a bad movie, or just that it depressed you?
All right. This is definitely not everyone's cup of tea. It is a strange film, and it's
a French film, that's for sure.
It's morbid. It's how do I put it? Okay, so we've got this story that begins with these two girls telling reading a book in the attic, in someone's attic, and it looks like it takes place in the earlier. Like in the 1920, 1910, something like that. And so the 6-year-old girl is reading a story to a girl who's a couple of years older than her. And they have these sort of, the sequence changes I found a little, I couldn't decide what was real.
No,
it wasn't even what was fantasy. But as she's telling the story about these two girls who were at private school, looks like it takes place in the 1790s or something, and their father dies, and so not only does their father die, but because of that, they're no longer able to attend the private school. They have to go home. Many of their belongings and their family are taken away because the income earner has died, and so now the mother finds herself with these two very young teenage girls.
No dowry or anything,
and in a position where she has to marry them off in order to give them an opportunity at a better life,
and so she marries the younger one off to.
Yes.
Bluebeard, a lord who everyone, it's like, it's funny because they're all like, all the people in the movie like, well, his wives keep disappearing. You should marry her. And it's just, well, everyone knows, like, the odd thing is these little girls are reading this really bloodthirsty fable about a lord who marries women and then they mysteriously disappear. And then he gets married again. And so he marries the youngest of the two daughters to...
She's literally like 13, and he must be in his 40s.
Yeah, yeah.
So even in this marriage, he refers to her as child.
Right, but, there's that thing where, she gets a separate room until she's old enough. So they don't have, there isn't that kind of weirdness going on just yet, but there's other weird things happening. My problem with the movie is that the two stories, to me, never blended well.
I can see that.
They kept as soon as I got interested in the Bluebeard story, it would jump back to the two annoying kids reading the book. And then when the kids just started getting interesting, it would go back to Bluebeard. And the pacing to me was all off. I didn't feel any connection. I didn't think it was the kids reading the story that was coming to life. I didn't see any kind of connection between that, or I wasn't feeling the connection.
Yeah, I did find the transitions hard to follow. Also, the movie it's entitled Bluebeard, and I know nothing about what you guys were saying about this being a fairy tale, a French fairy tale. But the movie itself really is about the young girl. I mean, she is the focus, and it's kind of told from her point of view in the sense that she really has these dreams to, as they were coming back from school or being taken from school, she sees a castle. I'm going to live in a castle. I'm going to have all these other things.
No, that's not the little girl. Redhead sister. But that's not the modern day girls.
No. That's the fantasy girl. It's the.
See, that's the thing. Now, I could just be. I'll admit, when it comes to a lot of art house movies. Well, no, when it comes to a lot of art house movies, particularly French art house movies, I am challenged. I don't get a lot of what they're talking about. I didn't get half of the stuff you found in this movie. To me, it was a story of Bluebeard and his wife. And then there was this annoying thing with kids going on.
To me, it's a story of a girl who wants to prove how brave she is. And there's a
little girl in the modern day.
There's a very surreal moment in this movie that blends the present, or what is the present, 1920s. The girl telling the story, where she inserts herself into a very morbid sequence in the film.
You mean at the end?
Just towards the end.
Right.
Yeah, which is there because she wants to prove to her friend how brave she is, just like the girl she's reading about wants to prove to her older sister, who seemed to get a lot more attention to her because she's got this vivacity and fiery red hair, and the other girl is dark and a bit more brooding. But she wanted to, escape from her family and prove that she can tackle things in life.
Yeah.
So she ends up marrying this very rich fellow. He's not a king. He's not a prince or anything like that. I think he's a trader, and he has lots of possessions. And in his castle, he has rooms filled with gems or gold, things. And when he goes in this movie, as the child is reading it, and as you see it play out on screen, he goes on these extended trips. And before he leaves on the trip, he hands her a very large ring of keys, and each key is to a different door in the castle. And so the first time he goes on a trip, he says, well, this is the door to the room that has the gems. This is the door to the rooms that has all these things. And because you can see in her eyes that she's like, wow, I'm going to party down. And she does. This is the girl who's had everything taken away from her, and she gets it back. And she can have her friends over and party. And he comes back, and he's obviously very upset that this has happened. So that, they have a very sort of like humdrum existence. Like he's interested in acquiring knowledge and teaching her, but woe be the person who crosses him, and she hasn't touched that barrier yet.
Right.
Until he tells her he's going to go on an extended trip again, somewhere. And as he's about to leave, he again produces the keychain, but then he also produces this one little key. He says, this is to a room into a basement that you are forbidden to go into.
Right.
But if you want me to leave you the key, I will. And she chooses to, leave that key.
Oh, you can trust me.
Right. So we cut back to the kids, and we have this story again with the little 6-year-old girl reading to the older girl and talking about how she has this endless curiosity. So I think this girl reading the story is changing this Bluebeard story as it's happening. I mean, there's something I think that's Neville's going to happen is that curiosity, takes over here, and she goes down into the basement, and she unlocks the door and she looks in. So, spoiler territory.
No. She sees something she shouldn't.
She sees something exceptionally morbid. And in this scene, the girl who's telling the story, the 6-year-old girl, strangely, the director chose to put her in place of the girl that she was reading about. So for a little while, we have the girl who's reading the story acting out as the girl who she was telling the story about.
When does this happen?
Okay, this is totally off the record.
No,
Like, spoil it if you want to put this at the end, but I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. She opens the door. There is a pool of blood.
Right.
Sticky, gooey blood on the floor.
Right.
And 3 decaying women hanging from the rafters.
The ex-wives.
The ex-wives.
Right.
In their, startlingly, without an ounce of blood on their dresses, as if their smocks or whatnot were just completely pristine, but their bodies are grayed, their nails are long, they're decaying.
Right.
And the blood has not
dried out.
Dried out. Yeah, I'm looking for the scientific term. But the blood is not dissipated in any way. It's still there. It's thick and it's gooey and it's all under them. And so the girl enters the room, and when she enters the room, it's not the girl who we've been seeing in the fantasy that she's been reading about.
Little girl?
It's the 6-year-old girl.
Really?
Who's walking through the blood.
See, I missed that part.
And not only is she walking through the blood, but she's like dragging her feet into it. And then she's walking around the dead bodies, and she walks through the legs of one of the dead bodies, under the skirt. So you can see the nails of their feet hanging down next to her. And she says, well, something like, look and see how brave I am. Can you tell? This is how brave I am, that this doesn't bother me. And so she...
See, that's the problem with me in French movies. I miss this whole thing. I didn't realize they switched.
And then once she comes out of this, I mean, she's basically, slopping her bare feet in the goop. Then it cuts back to the girl, the
French,
older 13-year-old blonde-haired girl, and then the scene later is that the other girl telling the story is talking to her friend about how brave she is. Not only that, I'm so
do I have to see this thing again?
And you're scared because at this point she says you're scared and I'm not.
Right. Huh.
And as a viewer, I don't think it was like being scared. It was just it was kind of mesmerizing in a way. I mean, like this was some really sick imagery.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, So the movie is very depressing, but it's unique in a way, and it does have this sort of quality that I can see people appreciating. But you were also you had mentioned the ending scene before we started recording.
Not me.
And that was that's a scene that's going to stick with some people. So this is not a happy movie. I would not want to see it again. But some people are going to find this interesting, and obviously Ned and Ivy at the Brattle found it interesting to both.
Now I feel like I should I'll just fast forward to that scene.
And now that I've completely spoiled it.
No, it's not. I think, actually, no.
But, I don't think maybe it's enough to get people to see the movie, because I'm not taking the point of the movie away. I'm just describing.
Obviously, it's not a spoiler, because they can go in and look for this where, I just let it slide by me and not... I didn't realize
you didn't describe any importance to it. I thought it was...
Well, no, I didn't realize... When I watched it, I didn't realize that the girls had switched places. Mm-hmm. I just didn't make that connection in my head, which makes me think I should call back my review and fix it, but that would be unfair.
It's a strange one, but I actually felt that it had a similar feeling to it, to the White Ribbon, and that... the sound effects in that movie, the dustiness, the creakiness.
The tedium.
Exactly.
Of the White Ribbon.
And there is. And in this medieval time, there was a lot of tedium.
Yeah.
Widescreen TVs, all you have are these books.
Bad dances.
With gems on the cover, and you get to turn the pages and find out that, the Chinese were keeping track of the lunar eclipse.
And you can play the lute.
20-something BC.
All right.
So, okay, we've been Bluebeard.
We've been Bluebearded. I think that's about it.
That is it. So, as always, if you guys, listeners, agree with us, disagree with us, or just want to connect on any subject regarding film, send us an email at postmoviepodcast@gmail.com or visit us on Facebook.
So you just use Twitter.
And we'll get back to you. We still have DVDs to give away for the anime. It's like we're giving away free DVDs, and we've given away a number of them, but there's still more. So if you have,
and we can't ask for new ones until we get rid of the ones we have. So,
just
send an email.
Again, John? You remember?
Oh God, there's Pokemon, there's Nana, I think we gave away the Bleach ones, but there's a bunch of animes. Even if you don't know what anime is, drop me an email. Get them out of my house. We can't get fresh DVDs until we get rid of these. So
it's good for the people who
anyone that hears this, drop a line and I'll send you a grab bag of DVDs.
postmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Are you meaning more than one DVD?
I will clear the decks.
We gotta do some shelf clearing here.
Yeah.
John does. So be sure to check us out at our new URL, which is post-movie.net. And I also want to add that John interviewed the director of Mother and Child. So
yeah, Rodrigo Garcia came into town about a week ago to talk about this new movie. It's funny, Mother and Child. It's a tearjerker. It's one of those movies that seems destined to make you cry. And I got a little weepy, I'll admit, but we talked about it. We talked about it's got a great cast. It's Naomi Watts, it's Annette Bening, Jimmy Smits is in it. There's a great Samuel L. Jackson performance in where he never really raises his voice, which is astounding to see. It's a story. It's three sets of three women. And how their lives change and intertwine as they have kids. And anyway, Rodrigo Garcia is the director. He did Passengers. He did a lot of his movies are. He did a lot of HBO stuff. He did Carnival. He did 6 Feet Under. But he also has these. He does a lot of movies that have multiple big cast, and the stories all intertwined, and he's really good at it. So anyway, we talked about casting. We talked about crying, we talked about everything. It's a pretty interesting interview.
I'm stuck on you got a little choked up.
Well,
that John means something.
I know.
That, because you're like a rock.
I know. Well,
it's like,
and here's
I'm thinking now I got to see it because what?
Bring your girlfriend in. You look like such a He-Man for sitting through it.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting in that interview was how you were able to get him to talk about small movies and details. That this is a movie with subtlety. There's a lot of power there, and so he talks about a number of different things in terms of how he casts people and that he cares about the details, and he's not about the big picture.
Right, and that's the thing. It's not I want to about the whole tearing up thing.
Do you need a moment?
No, I'm fine. But here's the thing. The screening that they had for this movie, the press screening, was myself and Ty Burr from the Boston Globe. That's it. 2 guys watching Mother and Child. And we're sitting there watching it, and there's a scene, there's this big thing that happens, and Ty looks back and goes, "My wife would be blubbering right now." I was like, yeah, I know. If I brought my mom, she'd be crying too. And we're both like sitting just far enough away. It was just really funny because at the end, he goes, "I teared up." I was like, "Yeah, but no one knows outside the room this happened."
Okay, all right.
And now, listeners, yeah, I did, and it wasn't at the moment you might think. In fact, if anyone can write in and identify the moment where I teared up,
this is what
they get nothing.
Ask you. Okay, before this movie, and I'm trying to think of the answer. My answer.
Yeah.
When was the last time you cried?
Old Yeller.
No.
Well, no, the last time I cried in amovie, and I'm not talking about blubbering, I didn't do that, but just tear in my eye it's so weird. It was watching It's a Wonderful Life at the Brattle, which they bring back every Christmas. And how many times have I seen that movie? And I never have any attachment to it at all, and I'm sitting there watching it in the theater, and Jimmy Stewart's back reunited with his family, and he finds Zazu's petals in his coat, and I was like, "Fuck!" And I just felt a tear come in my eye, and I didn't even feel like emotional. It's just like it was like a physical reaction that boom, there was a tear. I didn't feel sad or anything. I was like, "What is this?" So I would say that would be it. I did cry at Old Yeller. I still do if I ever see it.
You don't want to know? I'll admit this, and I was trying to think of. I cried during Saving Private Ryan, but I was trying to think, there's some moments in movies, and because you guys, I think all three of you chose Up as your best picture last year.
Yeah.
And so I went and got it, and I rented it, and that moment when the balloon floats into the hospital room, I think it was, and she's not in the bed, and his wife has died. That got me.
Yep.
Got me.
And that was a cartoon, Steve.
It was a cartoon, but
when I was
what was it, Ellie?
Yeah, his wife.
See, I'm crying just thinking about it.
Don't think about it. Happy thoughts. Happy thoughts. I remember as a kid. You remember? I think we're going off on a little tangent here, but back in the day, before they had movies you could watch at home all the time, they would always re-release movies.
And people just like kids today, they don't get what it was like before 1980.
And Disney would always re-release films.
The idea that you could bring home a movie was fucking magical.
I had a 16 millimeter loop of the Incredible Shrinking Man. They had to set up the projector and watch on a wall, but you couldn't just bring home movies.
I did that with Beyond the Planet of the Apes and Star Wars.
It all leads back to Star Wars, doesn't it?
Yeah, it always comes back to Star Wars. But
I remember
Planet of the Apes freaked me out when they took their helmets off and it was apes and
damn dirty apes.
Yeah, that was scary.
But I remember as a kid seeing The Jungle Book, and when you think Baloo has died, always kills me. Even to this day, if I watch The Jungle Book, I'm like, I give it a fast forward to this part.
You know what we were talking about? I was talking about with somebody after the movie.
Dumbo will make you tear up.
The animated version of Robin Hood was just so much more emotional than this.
Yeah, and it had Baloo as Friar Tuck.
Sheriff of Nottingham, and the God, who was that? Was it the snake? The tiger prince? Yeah, it was the tiger. Oh man, and when the sheriff comes to shake down the family and get the money from the kids,
there's real threat there.
There's a scene where he actually takes the money from the kid. That was sad.
Yeah. But so anyway, on the record, it was the three things that make me cry are Old Yeller, Baloo dying, and Mother and Child.
What was the second one? I'm sorry?
Baloo, when Baloo dies in the Jungle Book.
Baloo.
And Mother and Child. So there.
Yeah,
so I challenge, and the thing is, a lot of guys will not go see this movie, first because it's called Mother and Child, second because you're going to cry. So guys will avoid this. But don't. It's a good movie. It's good acting. It's an interesting story. There is one thing I will tell you guys about off camera if you want to know that just goes too far. And it made me laugh when I'm sure other people would cry. So I still have that in me.
John, but, here's the other thing about crying during a movie. It's not the fact that it was done, but how does one get out of the situation without having anyone know that you actually did shed a tear?
Oh, you yawn. You yawn. I learned that when I saw Romeo and Juliet, the Franco Zeffirelli movie, in high school. Our teacher was like, you boys are going to, let's just put it this way, you're all going to yawn towards the end of this movie. You know what I mean? Like, and wipe the tear out. And I saw the movie, and all I remember is, who's the girl in it? I remember her bum. I remember thinking, bum. And at the end, it wasn't sad. You knew they died, whatever. No connection to that, but Charles Lawton was literally my school teacher.
Once, and I was watching that Nick Drake documentary. I think I told you, Skin Too Few, and they showed the film, of him as a kid playing, and there wasn't apparently any existing footage of Nick Drake, and it was just also very sad. And it hit me, and then the lights came up, and I was like, people could see it. And I was like, oh no.
Well,
oh no! It also helps if you're sitting down front.
I'm a single tear kind of guy, so that's all I'll give. But it's kind of like you want to. It's worth seeing. Don't let being sad scare you.
Well, I hope our listeners aren't crying.
They usually do as soon as I start.
End it.
Let's end it. So anyway, the upside is that my interview with Rodrigo Garcia, it will not make you cry. It'll interest you. It'll make you a fan of me and the film, and it'll make you want to go see Mother and Child. So it's already posted. Check our archives, or actually just scroll on the page. You'll see a picture of Rodrigo on the set of Mother and Child, and give it a listen.
Sweet. And we've also got Amber Benson coming up. Who's
Yes.
cool enough to do the show with us. So that's coming up soon. And we interviewed Vincenzo, the director of Splice.
Right, and we've got George Romero for Survival of the Dead. I think his new one's coming out in June. So we've got some talent finally, besides us. We've got some real talent coming to those shows, so stay tuned.
As I sit here and fiddle with my tent, yeah, talent.
All right.
Okay, whatever you say. Until next time, this is the post-movie podcast. I'm emphasizing the.
I don't know.
To the.
Next week will be the post-movie soundtrack.
For the post-movie podcast, this is Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
Until next week. So
Goodbye.
long, everybody.